Hello. On behalf of the foundation of Laguna Woods Village, I'm very pleased to welcome you to today's broadcast. It's the second in a new series that the foundation is hosting called Planning for the Unpredictable. The LA fires were a wake-up call for all of us. For me personally, it made me realize that wildfires could occur in Laguna Woods and that we had to be prepared for that likelihood. This series, Planning for the Unpredictable, will look at different aspects of emergency preparedness. And today with me is a representative of the Orange County Fire Authority, Captain Thanh Nguyen. Many of you already know what the foundation is. It's the village's very own charity that steps in to help residents when they have a financial hardship. Our motto is neighbors helping neighbors, and more recently, we have expanded our focus to include some other services. With Memorial Care, we provide free fall prevention classes. We are renting emergency response devices for residents. And most recently, with a grant from Memorial Care, we are helping residents get hearing aids. I am Marcy Scheinwald, the president of the foundation. I did personally become fearful at the time of the LA fires. My manor is surrounded by trees, and the possibility of wildfire is very real. It made me realize how important it was for all of us to be prepared if that should ever happen here in the village. Captain Nguyen is here today to discuss that subject with us, but first to introduce us to what the Orange County Fire Authority is, what its mission is, its function, its resources. In addition, since the subject of evacuation has been a concern among residents that I have personally heard about, he will also demystify that subject somewhat with us. And he will also provide us with advice on what we might be able to do to prepare now. Welcome, Captain Nguyen. I'm so glad you could be here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Now, you're with the Orange County Fire Authority. How long have you been with them?
I've been with in the fire service now, coming up on 29 years.
Wow.
And and I started off with the City of Garden Grove Fire Department, and then about 7 years ago, the city opted to join the OCFA. So I've been with the OCFA for about 7 years now.
Okay. I noticed when I looked at your bio on Google, I checked you out. It said that you're a public information officer. What is that?
I am. So I feel really blessed to be part of the corporate communications section for the OCFA. The fire chief and the board of directors believe in communicating with the public, with such robust that we have a whole section that has 3 public information officers that are on constant rotation on shifts. We also have the public relations side, which has the community education, and we spoke about Milton.
Yes.
He falls under that group, and then we have a multimedia section too. And so our goal is to, communicate regularly, often, and with useful information, so everybody out in the public can actually take that information and do something with it. And that's a big reason why I'm here today too.
Good. I'm glad. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about yourself?
Well, like I said, with the discussion that we've had, before this, is that a lot of the times, for one reason or another, not everybody is aware of what their fire department provides for them. And I'm glad, I'm excited to be here to be able to speak to that. And, the fires in Los Angeles, were tragic. And as we discussed, it's just like anytime you have a tragedy like that, it's incumbent upon all of us, not just the fire department, but everybody out in the public, to actually take an active role to to try to mitigate these problems if we can. And so I think it's good timing.
Okay, and as we talked before we started this broadcast, I confessed to you that I really didn't know what the Orange County Fire Authority was. Could you give us some understanding of what it is, its mission, its function, what it actually does?
So the Orange County Fire Authority is a fire and rescue service. So we provide not only firefighters to fight fires, but then we also respond to a multitude of calls, on a regular basis, our medical aids. So all of our firefighters, or most of them, are paramedics also, licensed paramedics. And so we will respond to medical aids, which is the bulk of our calls, but then we also respond to hazardous materials incidents, technical rescues, you name it. If it isn't law enforcement related, we're handling pretty much all of it.
Okay, now, the Orange County Fire Authority is the fire service in Laguna Woods, correct?
Yes.
And it's my understanding that the city contracts with the Orange County Fire Authority to provide that service?
That is also correct.
And so we have the firehouse that we have on Paseo de Valencia is actually part of the Orange County Fire Authority.
Yes, Station 22, which I'm sure most everybody around here has driven by, affectionately known as the Big House. It's got 3 crews in there plus a battalion chief. So there's a truck company and 2 engine companies that I would say that at any given time, if I happen to show up there, most of the units will be out and responding to a call or something like that.
I was going to say they're active.
They're busy.
I hear the siren,
Yep.
but I have to tell you, as I said before, it's a fire station that is very well loved by the community. Now, we've been talking, well, first, let me ask, have you personally been involved with wildfires or serious emergencies?
I have, and it's in 29 years. I've seen my share of it, and particularly wildfires. I've been to, I can't even tell you how many I've been to, but I've responded both as a firefighter, battling wildfires, protecting homes, and then also as a public information officer with an incident management team. That team is generally activated when a major incident occurs that's going to last for multiple operational periods.
Okay, so if there was a wildfire in Laguna Woods, it would be Station 22 and the Orange County Fire Authority, which would be in charge of responding?
Yes, so Station 22 is our closest fire station, but the reality is if there was a fire, we're going to send the closest, most appropriate unit. So if the firefighters at Station 22 are not committed to a call already, they will be dispatched. But we send not just one crew, we send multiple crews. And what we call a vegetation fire response, will get 6 fire engines, helicopters, our hand crew firefighters, our heavy equipment, our bulldozers. So you name it, we will throw it at the fire.
So that's the advantage of the city of Laguna Woods contracting with Orange County Fire Authority.
Yes.
It's able to draw on resources that a single...
Absolutely. Yeah, you have Station 22 located here. However, we're sending resources from all the surrounding cities that are all part of our organization. So, you get what we call a regional service. So you're going to get all our resources, the closest one, most appropriate one. And we have 78 fire stations throughout the county. And so they, at a moment's notice can be activated.
Are most of the cities in Orange County affiliated with OC Fire?
Most, yes. So we have 23 cities that we contract with, plus unincorporated county areas. And so that leaves 8 remaining cities that have their own fire department.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about one of the subjects that's of concern in the village, because I hear this from residents and the foundation works with social services here, is the issue of evacuation. First of all, how would residents know if evacuation became necessary?
So we recognize that different people will get their notification or their news different ways. And so when we do have a major emergency, our quickest and easiest way is to put something out on social media. We do understand, though, that there are people out there that are not on social media and rely on that information elsewhere. We have the public information officers that are available 24/7 to the news media. So if a major incident does happen, we are in constant contact with reporters. And then I think also another way is that, for sure, another way is to register for Alert OC, which is a county alerting system that will notify you. So you just go online, register for it, and an alert will come to your phone, if there is an emergency.
Okay, so we get the alert, all right? In fact, on Monday I got the earthquake alert. My phone had
Did you duck cover and hold on?
Well, not quite, but that's a true confession.
Okay.
But once that alert comes through, can you give us some kind of understanding of how evacuation would go forward?
So when the evacuation is activated, there's a few pieces of few steps that occur before it actually gets to that. So we will be at the fire emergency, or whatever emergency it is, and our incident commander and all of the firefighters will be working to determine how are we going to make this problem go away, but then also do we need to evacuate people. Working hand in hand with the sheriff's department, we will determine areas that need to be evacuated, and the agency having the jurisdiction, the lawful jurisdiction to affect an evacuation would be the sheriff's department. But like I said, we're generally a major incident will be in unified command between the two agencies. And and once that's been determined that what areas need to be under evacuation warning or order, that will go out multiple ways, as I mentioned, and then that's the goal, is to get people out. Now, what you mentioned earlier about the LA fires and some of the people that that perished, is that it's too early to know why, what the cause was, but all I can say is, this TV show right here is just one way of being proactive, of getting that information out, and you can't rely on everybody in society to be part of your public safety. I've done this long enough, I've said it to countless people, it's a partnership between the Orange County Fire Authority or your fire department, the law enforcement agency, and the people out in the community. You got to take an active role to prepare for these emergencies also.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up, Captain Nguyen. When you say take an active role, what really are you saying?
So when you take an active role, you got to have a plan in place, and the key word in having a plan is make it personal. So everybody's plan is going to be slightly different based on their personal needs. The fact that I can't leave the house without my glasses is part of my personal needs, and so if you have trouble getting out of your home, you need to identify that and work with the proper agency, and in this case would be Laguna Woods here, to determine what are your options to get out, when an emergency occurs. The fact of the matter is that, when a major fire happens, the majority of our firefighters are going in and trying to put out that fire,
right,
with the goal of protecting lives and property. Now, it's not to say that we're not going to come and help you, when we have an emergency like that. And I'll give you an example, is that during the coastal fire, we all saw that in the news where homes were burning. We were pouring resources in there, but then we were also getting calls of elderly people that were trapped in their homes. And, and we sent resources there also. But that's something that our emergency command center is triaging and determining. Okay, what's our best allocation of resources there?
So that OC Fire would set up if there was the unfortunate event of a wildfire here, they would set up a command center here.
Yeah, we would set up a command post, but it would be somewhere nearby.
Right.
But then also not in a place where we would have to move it if the fire actually overran the area. So there's rhyme and reason to where they would set up their command post, but it would be nearby here.
Okay. Now you said a personal plan.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about people who might have limited mobility.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something they would have to notify perhaps the village or the sheriff. Anybody else that should be part of that discussion? Because it's a large number here in the village.
No, absolutely. I get that. I would start off with the village because that's your day in, day out,
right.
Subject matter experts. And come up what are the resources that are available. The whole idea is that when it comes to evacuation, we will warn you, if the conditions allow us to. Sometimes the conditions escalate just like that.
I know that.
But we will place evacuation warnings before we actually place you in an order. Now, if the fire started right in your backyard, then it would be in order immediately.
Okay, and you use that terminology, warning and order. Can you just clarify what the difference is?
So a warning is that it's not mandatory. And we try to go away from various terms.
Yeah.
Warning and order are two accepted terms. Warning is that emergency may approach where you're at, and you need to be ready to evacuate should the order actually come in. The roads may not be closed to your neighborhood, at that point. So however, when an order goes into place, it's a mandatory order to get you out of your home, and then also there will be road closure. So once you leave, you're not coming back in because we don't want anybody coming in and placing themselves in harm's way.
Okay, one of the other issues related to mobility is that there are a significant number of residents here who do not have their own cars. In Laguna Woods, we have an internal bus service, so people can get around and participate. How is that handled?
So I can't speak for what the village does, and maybe I'll put it back on you on what they would do. But a lot of places, if it isn't in place, look into whether there is some way to pre-fill out information, right? So when a crisis strikes, whether it be fire, earthquake, or anything like that, is that we're aware of where everybody is and the needs. And so that's one way to look at it.
Okay.
But really it gets down to the village here and what their evacuation plan is.
Yes, they're starting a program with building captains so that we would have a better understanding of the residents' needs. One of the things that we keep hearing about is that everybody should have a go bag.
Yes.
Could you explain for our audience what that means and what they should do?
A go bag is something that is manageable for you to just grab and literally just run out the door, if it got down to that's how fast you needed to evacuate. And that go bag should be personal belongings. Once again, it gets down to your personal needs. On our website at ocfa.org for residents, there's a section for Ready, Set, Go, and there's resources there that'll give you ideas on what you need, in your go bag. For me, personally, a go bag would be a change of clothes, some clothing that it's actually warm because you never know with the weather. I would have, if I had medication I had to take, I would have a supply of it in there, and anything else that I may need, such as my reading glasses, some spare cash, you know, and anything that I'm going to need for at least 3-4 days.
3-4 days.
Yeah. Bare minimum is 72 hours.
All right. That is 3 days last time I looked. Now, not all fires are due to wildfires. Given the nature of the village, what other advice or suggestions can you give in terms of fire safety?
You know, that would be like an all-day conversation, which I would love to have with you.
But what key points would you?
I think that, you know, just as far as to avoid a structure fire in your home, you know, I would say some of the safety aspects would be, one, and we were talking about evacuation, is having working smoke alarms. You know, it's, you know, they say that when you fall asleep, and especially when you're in a deep sleep, your sense of smell may diminish. And so, you know, relying on smelling smoke to wake you up is not a good way to go. So I would say have working smoke alarms. The other one is have a routine. You know, if you're cooking, one of the things that we see regularly is cooking items still left on the stove and the stove's still on or the oven is on. Make sure you have a routine to actually turn that off. Before you go to bed, you know, have a routine before you go to bed and make sure your doors are locked, you know, and make sure that all your appliances are off.
Okay. In terms of the county's overall fire safety, do you see any particular issues for Orange County? Are there vulnerable areas?
Well, when we're talking about vulnerable areas, are we talking about wildfire?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, there are areas that are, you know, up against wildland area. You know, we do have pockets of it around here. However, the one thing that we proactively do, is that our community risk reduction section have what we call a pre-fire wildland section, that they go out and they work with our hand crew and they work with our heavy equipment, our dozers, and they work with the community also to come up with really sound solutions on how to prevent fire. And you know, we talk about having clearance around your home.
Yes.
You know, 100 feet of clearance. But then even equally important to that is that immediate zone from the wall of the outside of your home, 5 feet out. If you have furnishings, you know, pillows, whatever, on your patio set, all of those things can catch fire when embers land in them. So, you know, we tell people to have that immediate zone free and clear of anything that may catch fire.
Okay. Captain Nguyen, before we end, we talked about a lot of subjects today. I think we covered the waterfront. What would you like the viewers to remember most from our discussion today?
You know, I would say that the one thing I want everybody to really take away from today is that, you know, when we see tragedy, you know, on the news or, you know, or hear of it, is that we don't let those tragedies go without learning something from it. And so we're in a time right now where it's gotten attention and people should be active, they should be engaged. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a partnership between the fire authority and everybody out in the community to stay safe. You know, we'll do our part when you call us, but we would rather you not have to call us by being prepared.
You mentioned earlier when you described the unit that you work with as a public information officer that there is community education available, and there may be viewers to this program who are involved with clubs or groups in the village. How would they get in touch with somebody to request an educator to come and to help them better understand the principles of fire safety?
Oh yeah, it doesn't end right here with this interview. We have in every division throughout our service area a community educator that specializes on these subjects. And so they can either call us or they can fill out a request form on our website. Once again, ocfa.org, go to the residents tab and you'll see what you want in there. And I've been directing people to that for years now. And it's easy, and it will go to the appropriate educator. They will be in touch, and they can schedule a meeting or a presentation, whatever they want.
That would be very, very helpful. And are there materials in multiple languages that are available through OC Fire?
Yes, also under the same tab.
Okay,
Yes.
so we would get...
on all sorts of subjects.
Oh,
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Captain Nguyen, thank you very, very much for your time today. I really appreciated talking with you. And you may get calls. The OC Fire may get contacted, we hope, for public education.
Absolutely.
And have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.